Well, the BBC have made a series about gangsters in Rochdale that's been played, I think, 3 nights in a row this week. I haven't watched the first one yet, but when that was going out, I do recall on this channel making some videos where Rochdale was in the spotlight, but it was like the alt-right types had got hold of it and they were saying Pakistani grooming gangs. And they kept on pointing to this case, as bad as it was, of taxi drivers, which ended up being a silly cover-up in the end because it was a complicated situation because the Labour Party got involved with it, covering it up, because the guy who was the ringleader worked for Oldham Council. That's the subsequent cover-up that led to that being a big deal. That's why internally they've tried to quash it, because it made them look bad. He was associated with all kinds of people. He was someone who tricked everyone. So they in their way covered it up. Big scandal with the children's homes for the vulnerable that went as far as like nationwide sort of public inquiry, and it's like, well, we're still waiting to hear if anyone ever be held accountable for that. So Rochdale, it's like we're getting attention for things that had gone on 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I'm like, hang on a minute. I'm like, you know, if there are forces in the world, if there is such a thing as like MI5, right? Or we have any kind of setup in this country that deals with like really, really serious criminal activities, gangsters. If we've got those kind of cops, we need them here now. Now. Not trying to score points against the fucking Labour Party. In the here and now. Harking back to things that happened years ago. In a town where it's depraved. You know, you knock on every door and you'll find a sad story. Or know someone who knows something as to where the world's been changed by all kinds of wickedness that goes on. And I'm there all saying these Pakistanis, but like, mate, it's like gangsters. So we're seeing signs here of some like messages being sent, like blood magic shit. Blood magic shit. Yeah, people having limbs removed with machetes to send a message to others not to mess with them. It's like, this has gone beyond the pale. It's like you're talking about this old school grooming. It's like, who's controlling the turf of this huge cocaine business and heroin business and crack business they've got going on in this town? That kind of thing goes hand in hand with prostitution because, hey, girls like drugs too. It's like we've got a massive problem like that, and we've got gangsters who are so dangerous that the council, you know, the people who are supposedly our elected officials and be part of the job of the state, they don't even talk about them. They don't even mention them because they know that they've got no way of defending themselves against them. It's like they've just got too much real world muscle to address. It's like, who's going to protect you from them? That's just, well, not the cops, they're bound by the law. Those who are coming after you aren't bound by the law. So the cops can't protect you. So I'm like, I'm talking on my YouTube channel, I'm saying, there's a turf war going on here, right? Turf war. Where the criminals have made it so everyone who's a councillor is a waste of time. They've handpicked the most ineffectual, fucking detached people they could find and build them up and put them in a power. And now it's like, oh, it's a criminal's playground because these people will only talk about, you know, what's in the Guardian. They're not bothered about what goes on here. This is not their business. While these people have power, they then have control over the police. And they turn the whole thing into a big politically correct, wishy-washy work avoidance scheme, and turn policing into a point scoring exercise with strange perverse incentives, as to where the cops could be seen to be. They look at a crime and say, no one needs to hear about this, do they? And guys at the lower level being making decisions as to say, nah, we're not investigating this. We're not investigating this. This is a police force that have lost tens of thousands of crime reports. Lost them. Gone. This is a police force that has had its HR databases hacked, and the press report it far and wide that their information's been hacked. So the cops themselves, they've been doxxed. All of them have already been doxxed. And they, as private citizens, they got no recourse from gangland idiots making threats against them and the kids, being dangerous people, sending fucked up messages. It's like, it's a problem. I'm like, if this country's got like clandestine, black on black cops, they need to be in Rochdale. They probably need to be in every town, but just this moment in time, they need to be in this. They need to be here. And then we've got tales of like man being chopped up with machete in front of his kid, in the plain view of like at a fair old distance away, in the plain sight of like 30 or 40 people's residences with them all outside. What's that sound? What's that noise outside? And they open curtains to see a guy getting chopped up with a machete. It's like, hey, that's a day of days, isn't it? That's one you might remember. You can drive past the spot and say, yeah, that's where that guy was chopped up with a machete in front of his kid. To send a message. You go down, what's it called, Miller Street now, and it's like, yeah, that's that house where they had that machete gang attack, where there was an assault on the house and people inside it were all chopped up. Yeah, that's the place. It's like, why is the traffic all backed up? Oh, serious crime scene. What's happened? And it's like the cops so far off the pace, they're just picking up pieces off the road. They've become a clean-up team that can't say no. We're not doing it. So it's good to see, you know, it's like, oh, the BBC have made a documentary about what was a large clandestine police operation to break up that gang. And I'm like, shit, John. Not that someone was listening. It's like you weren't just you know, crying out into the fucking void. You weren't the only one who saw it. There were those who there were still those in the world who knew and were doing their bit to try to stop it, doing their bit to try and get to it, because it's like the way that these guys are able to defend each other and deflect and lie and make a game of the legal process, make a game of the arrest procedures, make a game of the rules about intimidating witnesses, make it so, yeah, you can charge them with all kinds of things, but good luck with your evidence, because no one's going to turn up to testify against these guys because they've got relatives and they'd like them to keep the limbs. So I'm going to wait until all three parts of that are out, and then I might just see if it finds its way onto a streaming service or something like that. If it finds its way onto YouTube, which they usually do. BBC makes a decent documentary, it'll end up on YouTube. I don't do the BBC. The only thing I'll watch on the BBC is something that I'm in. So I'll wait until it comes up, and I'll have a watch of it, and I'll be like, someone was actually paying attention, not to me, to what was going on, because it was just being re-reported on. There was never any journalism done. It was just being reported on, and you'd be sat at home and you'd be following what's the patterns of things that are happening. And it's like, there's a strangeness about how dumb our press have become, the police and the political thinkers around here, where they seem to think that the next town along is like another planet. Like 4 miles down the road in Oldham, you've got the same people operating, because criminals don't understand the town boundary. But there's bureaucracies that do, that seem to think that the world stops. That because the councils and the police forces jurisdictions start and stop. Because a lot of what goes on with gangster activity is, the council have got a massive part to play in it, because of the things that they're responsible for addressing, like antisocial behaviour, like noise abatement type stuff. Like if your own neighbourhood is sick of your activity, you go to the council, not necessarily the police. So it's a combination of the two. And it's like they're woefully unequipped to do that job, and they're woefully unequipped to do that job in the next town, and they don't compare notes, because they're more interested in not looking incompetent and having the illusion of having some kind of idea of what the place is and control over it, that to admit that they don't control anything and they don't know shit and they're completely out of the depth. Well, that would be to admit that, wouldn't it? And that would appear that there's a weakness in them. And they won't face that. They won't face that they're not fit for purpose when they find themselves up against, like, nasty, devious criminals who are just rats who'll do whatever they need to do. They can't live with it. They can't deal with it. It's like, to this like woke mind, people like that can't be explained. It's as if they're not real. It's as if, no, that's something you've seen in a movie. It's like, no, it's not. It's just you can't see it because there's too much horror there. You get to thinking about the implications of it, and you're like, oh no, do I have to give up thinking that I'm a big shot because I'm actually just living in a dream world, and these are the guys who've got the real power. These are the guys who make the bloody wheels turn, not us. It's them who can make the world stop and start at their command, not us. It's great to see that it's all going to get exposed, and it's being exposed as to just how bloody rough things are. And that's upshot to it, isn't it? New people come to the town and don't actually realise that it's already someone else's gangster turf, because they're not aware of whose gangster turf it is. It's in essence the cops' gangster turf, isn't it? That's kind of how it works. And they're like, there's no one protecting this turf. Okay, so we can just tax it, can't we? Yes, we can. We can just tax it. We can tax any criminal activity in this area that we've given ourselves power over, knowing that we can prey on the local drug dealers and criminals because they haven't got protection of the law of the police. They can't do nothing to us. So we're taking this town. And how do you take the town? You bring all the criminals to heel and make them pay you to operate. Run a protection racket over the criminals. That's how it works. And it's like, new people come along, see that doesn't appear like it's being properly enforced, and suddenly it's their turf. And then what happens is they just haven't been noticed. It's like the story of every little drug dealer who went to jail. It's like no one stopped these guys on the way up. What's what happens to that kind of activity? It's like there'll be, wherever you go, there's already a criminal enterprise that's supplying narcotics. There's already one there. So anyone who starts up is actually, hang on a minute, you're holding your sign up to say, hey, I'm selling too. It's like, who said you could do that around here? No one did. Well, you didn't know that you needed permission. Okay, well, we'll give you a warning this time. Empty your fucking pockets. And that's a protection racket. You run a protection racket over the criminals. It doesn't appear to have happened around here, that. Gangs have been able to just pop up, unchallenged, flourish, be fucking maniac children who never grow up, and nobody's ever fucking stood up against them or tried to stop them. This town, any given time, it's like they've stopped doing it now. In my father's neighbourhood, you'd have it where they would black cars parked up like a taxi rank, and just drug delivery guys, just mules, just runners, everywhere. Seen parked up lines of fancy cars, Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, blacked out windows, everywhere. You can hear them buzzing around all the time. I remember saying in a video, it's like, hello, Greater Manchester Police. So see these guys driving around in these black cars? How about nicking one of them and sweating them? Just bust him for possession for what he's got in the car, because it's in there. He's got drugs in there, no matter how well it's hidden, it's in there. You know all the tricks. Search one of them, bust one of them, turn one of them, find out what's going on. All you've got to do is bust one of these maniacs driving around this town like it's a fucking racetrack. Go and bust one of them, go and sweat them, and you'll find out there's something really bad going on. It's like, I could tell you more, right? But if people got wind of, right, the tales I could tell, those who told me those tales would be in trouble, because they know who they are. And it'd be that bad. It's like, I don't get involved with criminal types around here, but I know a few people who do. It's like, I've got relationships that go back to childhood, to primary school, with people who are on the wrong side of the line. I know them. I know where they've been. I know what they've been up to. I know what the game is. I know who they are. Not that I'd be someone to split on any of them. I'd be saying, oh no, the ones I know are the best of a very bad bunch of people, the very, very best of the bad bunch. And what stories do they tell? Stories of people who are up to a lot worse than they are, who they're afraid of, because they themselves have no protection, they do not have the protection of the law. They can't pick up the phone, dial 999 and say someone's threatening to kill me. Can they? That'd bring the police into their business. Have the cops blackmailing them as opposed to other criminals. It's like it needs to be a clandestine operation against these guys to take them down. You've got to go hard on them and bust them like you were the SAS. Or you've got to infiltrate them and get a turncoat. You've got to turn one of them to bring it down. It does appear that may be what's happened. And it's like, isn't that glorious? Isn't it? It's like it's the tip of the iceberg, but hey, you know, it's like make everyone else think twice as to whose turf it really, who really owns the turf. The police have given themselves legally a kind of monopoly on the use of force and violence. And it doesn't mean anything. It's like a gun ban. You can't shoot me, guns are banned. Bang. The police giving themselves a legal monopoly on the use of force and violence doesn't mean there's no force and violence used as a weapon against people. Although they would assume, there are those in the world who would assume that it does. Well, they're not going to use, surely they're not going to use violence on each other. It's like, no, they go a lot further than that. They're not from round here. They'll chop your fucking hands off and your feet off. They'll turn you into a cripple and maim you, so when anyone sees you, it's a reminder of what they're capable of. They cut people up. See, that's a place, Rochdale. It's one of these places that's always been a place is like a diaspora. It's a place that's always had its own immigrants, whether they be from other towns or other countries. And something that's a feature of Rochdale is you would see people who would have their faces cut on quite a bit of older people. Have cuts on the faces, cuts on the mouths, cuts on the noses. And they're not from round here. Oh, I'm from Liverpool. Oh, I'm from Belfast. Oh, I'm from South Manchester. Oh, and what does it mean when someone deliberately cuts on your face like that? Means you're a fucking grass. Means you're a snake in the grass. No, and then you say, doesn't that mean you're a snake in the grass? And it's bullshitter. Fucking backstabber. Having those cuts on your face. No, it was an accident at work. All right, and then the next person who asks, oh, no, I was in a car crash. Okay. This is that kind of place. People have run here from trouble. They've been exiled and come here over the years. And you know what? I think we see the same pattern emerge once again with our huge influx of immigrant families. It's like, why have you run from whatever you run from to come and live on a ghetto piece of shit council estate in Rochdale that's damp? It's not really that great, not fit for, not probably as healthy a place as you came from. But you're trapped here, and we've got a system of governance now that sees you as a cash incentive, actually sees you as a source of work for someone. It's like, I'd love for someone to talk some sense into these immigrants and say, what do you think you're going to get when you come here? Where do you think they're going to send you? Where do you think you're going to be allowed to live? And the answer is, you're going to live in the northwest of England. You're going to be dumped in a place like Rochdale or Oldham, Huddersfield, Wakefield, something like that. You're going to be thrown into one of the satellite towns and just dumped on the local authority. Local authority reported yesterday that there's 10,000 people on the waiting list for a house in Rochdale. 10,000 people on the waiting list for a house. It's like, hang on a minute, they've been building houses, they've been building more, and people die. There's always, the system refreshes itself because people die, buildings still there. No one, and then it's like, I live in a council flat, and I never intended to live in this place for longer than a year, maybe. And here I am. Circumstances can make it so you never escape from these places. Have you seen the price of what a house costs these days? I sold in a highly inflated marketplace, but I mean, the property I sold back in 2001, 20 years later, it's worth double what I sold it for, and I sold it for more than double what I paid for it. So we live in a cocked up world where food's become cheap, but rent and finance have become astonishing. House prices astonishing. So no one would, no, you wouldn't, I wouldn't pay good money to live in this town. Find somewhere else. If I had £250,000 to drop on a house, I wouldn't live around here. I'd go and find somewhere else to live. I'd start again. As opposed to put that kind of commitment into here. But it's like house prices around here, they don't drop. And it's like, why? It's like, because no one has got a place to live. It's like, we've got it where in the south, and they never speak of this. This is like one of them things that we just pretend isn't real. You get your arse around certain parts of this country, like Lincolnshire, like in Peterborough, right? And what you'll find is massive depot camps full of trailers. Just trailers and then static caravans. Sometimes as far as the eye can see, you'll be going through a little village. And then you'll go over a bump and you'll look to the right, you're like, fuck me, that's the biggest fucking travellers camp, or whatever you want to call it. Temporary accommodation, shanty town. And it's like, why have things like that popped up? It's like, poor people can't afford to live in the towns where they were born. Through no fault of their own. Can't afford to live. And it's like, how's Rochdale become a place like that? This is not a desirable place. People do not move here for work. People do not move here because it's beautiful. Because as beautiful as it is, the weather ain't great. So no one really moves here. Why are the house prices so high when there's no incentive for new people to come? And it's because there's no scarcity in the market, because they endlessly sending refugees here. So it's like, in some regards, it's like there's a kind of housing benefit scam going on. It's making it so, because there's so little property available, the price is never going to have to ever come down, because there's just so much redundancy in the market. It's like landlords are making a fortune, and have been, out of this situation. 10,000 people on the housing list. That's incredible. And they're saying minimum 5 years wait. I got this place when I got it because I was the 21st person to view it, and everyone else had turned it down. And why they turned it down? Because it was a broken down, damp shithole. That's why they all turned it down, and I took it because I needed somewhere to live. And I can stand for a bit of, let's say, country living, hardship. I'll deal with it. Took them over a decade to come fix it. So it's like, that's the price I paid for only waiting on the housing list for 2 years. I got a chance on a house that no one else wanted, and waited a decade for it to be made livable. That's what this place is now. It's like, you think there's trouble. You know, you think there's trouble out in the world, and you think there's trouble down to ideology. Like, it's like, there's plenty of people in the world with fucking good reasons to be angry, who are genuine victims. None of these ideological victims are victims. For every single one of them, you can make a case as to say, well, you've played an equal and opposite role in your downfall. You made some terrible mistakes, and you're paying the price for bad decision making. Make better decisions. Hang out with better people. Think more of yourself. Treat yourself with a bit more respect. Look out for yourself a little bit more. Right? Good advice to people like that. You get it where people have just been perpetually unemployed for years, or started without a fucking prayer because there was no one in the world who could put their hand in the pocket and bail them out, ever. So they've had to throw themselves on the mercy of others so many times and have found themselves exploited and used. And you've got a group of people there who've ended up on their uppers in the shit by no fault of their own because they never had any agency. They were always seen as being disposable. They were always seen as being desperate. They were always seen as being, well, fuck him. Just scum. Who gives a fuck what he thinks? Who gives a shit that he needs money to live on? This is what we're paying. If you don't want the job, somebody else do it. It's like no one looks out for them. They've got no voice. And it's living in that misery that sends them then chasing ideologies, looking for outs that might see them fucking vote for the Labour Party. You project that own personal sense of helplessness out into the wider world. Why wouldn't they? It's got an outlet. It can all just be spewed out on the internet. Some ways the internet is as much a blessing as it is a curse, and it might well be that without the internet, those working class people right at the bottom who find themselves wholly in the shit might have rebelled by now if they hadn't found this outlet to be able to voice their grievances to the public and be heard, whether it be by just one person. I tell you, there's folk out there who are decent people who just don't know the fucking rules. There are criminals in this fucking place that just know no better. That's the life they were brought into. They might not be actively robbing and deceiving people, but they're fucking lying to everyone about everything and giving themselves a pat on the back for being so clever. But it's a matter of that. It's like gangsters, right? Gangs, they prey on those people who aren't being represented. They prey on the weakest, the most vulnerable, the ones who've been used before, the ones who are looking for a miracle, the ones who are need to be saved, need to escape. That's who they prey on. And then you wonder why that they don't get much attention. So what? Well, the people they prey on are fuck all, so fuck them. I live in Rochdale. Rochdale is the council who had young girls in their care that were 13-year-old who were fucking everyone. And the Rochdale Council's employees, the experts who run the town were like, oh, it's a lifestyle choice. They are choosing, they're using their agency to choose to be sex workers. Good for them. And it's a weird one, you know, because they would never give a working class grunt like myself off a council estate. They would never give me a job at the council able to make that kind of decision on someone else's behalf or make that kind of judgment call. I'd never make that kind of judgment call. I'd be like, well, the law's the law, kid, you know what I mean? Whether or not you can stop it or not, you don't condone it. You hold the line. Just hold the line. Just hold the line. Don't make no new age fucking commie, sex addicted, fucking perverse projections about it and call it right. In that position to make that decision, they would always have someone who's from like some leafy part of the town or leafy part of the district, who's been to university, who's never known a day of misery or despair. Not really. never been that vulnerable, never been that fucked up. And they make that call and they say, good on them. Almost envy them. As if, well, they get to live. I've lived a sheltered life, and I sometimes regret it, as we were all given to do. And they would make a judgment call based on what would better suit them. It'd be like a narcissistic projection onto those girls as to, I wish I got some fucking dick. So good on them. It's like, you've made some great moves putting radical feminists in charge of kids. People who think logic follows, like, well, I was fucking around when I was 13, so when my daughter fucks around when she's 13, if I was to say something, that would make me a hypocrite, wouldn't it? No, it wouldn't. Make you someone who realise, maybe, had gained some wisdom, so you didn't throw, so you could recognise that you sort of threw it away for nothing. And give someone else a choice, as to say, you know what you sacrifice when you do that. It's like you've highly reduced your odds of ever meeting a really nice fellow with a really nice family and having a white wedding that's all paid for, haven't you? You've thrown that chance in the bin that you might have for security and family in bonding. No, you've commoditised sex at a young age, and then you be thinking about everything in terms of what's in it for me. As say, you can get your life off on the wrong foot. Now, I'm not someone to say to someone, don't do this, I'm going to make sure you don't do this. But I might be someone there who'd be saying, like, this is what you're throwing away. This is what you're... This is, at this stage of the game, an opportunity for a future. The window of possibility for you having the happy life, as that we all aspire to at some stage. That's where we all come from. We all come from families. And we all see families, and families, everything's family. So we see this family, we have this notion towards it, good or bad, but strong. It's like the window for that potential future is closing. And people should be given a choice. Like, yeah, fair enough, you can become sexually active at 13. Can't really stop you. Not unless you really want to. But this is what it might cost. You've massively, because you don't know how you're going to feel after. You don't know what the throes of moving into a world of powerful emotional drivers and fucking, at the same time as a child's mind full of fucking lollipops and fucking unicorns. Terrible. But you're not going to be able to ever stop people from doing it. But it's a matter of hold the line against it, don't enable it, and be rational and make it so they've got a choice. That's all you can ever really do with people. You can't make them do anything, but you can give them a choice. And to be free, that's as good as it gets. To have been warned. So that's all I can do for you. I'm sorry. It's like that's as far as it goes as to where the level of control or influence I've got over anyone is. I can warn you. I give you a warning and say, well, don't complain to me so much when you make your decision and you do what you want to do. Well, when things don't turn out so well, understand that you had a choice, so it's on you. And you'd be better for getting away. You'd be better for getting over it, because in giving someone a choice like that, you've raised the question. And when things do go wrong, they are more likely to either blame you for jinxing them, which is a common thing, or they'll blame themselves for having made the mistake. and create a rule, create a boundary with people by giving them a choice. And then put to them the notion that to go against your advice might be to disappoint you, which it inevitably would, and that may be worth something. So it's like, you know, there are ways and means of going about it that could be seen as being manipulative, but it'd be a matter of, we're not allowed to restrain people. We're not allowed to lock them up. We're not allowed to bar them from doing anything at all. You're not allowed to protect people against themselves. So the best you can do is to make conditions. Go with the old notion of conditional love. Say, well, if you disappoint me, don't bother fucking coming back unless you're going to say sorry. But that's me. It's like I think I treat people as if they've got agency, and not as if they're just. Like, give them a chance to be adults, and they might behave like them. You never know. It's the best you can do. It is the best you can do. It's all you've got. Respect people for being dangerous. Be a fucking mighty guide as well. But it's like, I say that the problem, the biggest element of the problem that I can see that as to where gangsters can run riot and can almost be invisible because they've managed to frighten everybody. It's like, you could do the best outcome you've got, or the best thing you could do is to recognize and identify that as being real. Point to it and say, look, we've got a problem with intimidation here. We've got a problem with. By the time they get to them, you know, the young criminal drug dealer who's been shaken down or has been brutalised. By the time he gets to the authorities, he's telling some bullshit story that he's been like randomly mugged or attacked in order to some kind of subterfuge to put over the fact that he's likely a drug runner who's lost some money or been pinched or stolen. But by the time when the ambulance men are picking him up off the street, he's some poor Uber driver. Poor Just Eat driver who was randomly mugged or attacked. It's like, what chance has anyone ever fucking got when the whole thing's couched in just bullshit lies? But having, say, politically correct, powerful, monolith local authorities that will turn a blind eye. It's like, if we can't control it, if it's something we've got responsibility for, that we can't control it, just is something else that we lie about. Yes, we will accept money from the central government and charities and the like to be responsible for these waifs and stray young people. And we will take responsibility for being, having some semblance of locus of control over all the lunatics. None of it's real. They're just taking money for it. It just becomes something that they lie about. They ain't got control over shit. How many fucking people do you know who've got like massive combinations of comorbid mental illnesses that are running with all kinds of different labels as to where, if I was a psychiatrist, I'd say you were bipolar, and you had manic episodes like hypomania. But if I was a psychologist, I'd be saying that you had a few comorbid personality disorders. You're actually avoidant, schizoid sometimes, borderline, narcissistic, histrionic. But we're talking about exactly the same person. talking about exactly the same person, and then it be another angle of looking at it and saying, right, okay, what have you told the doctors? Or that I'm depressed, or that I'm having trouble sleeping, and that I'm having episodes like becoming emotional and irritable, and are you still on the drugs? Are you still on the E's all the time? Oh yeah. You're still smoking loads of weed. Yeah. Have you told the psychologist that you're still doing loads of pills and still smoking? No. Well, that's not the problem, is it? So we've got, it's like that entire rigged system that's it's definitely a women thing, that, as to how it works, as to how it goes, as to how they are able to just brainwash them and pop them full of Valium and send them to fucking work. Like, okay, so we've popped her full of Valium and we've sent her back to work. What does she do for a job? Oh, she manages like 150 people. She's got a high stress, high pressure job. It's like in thinking, right? In trying to in thinking they know, the system, the institutions. They've decided they know what human beings are, and they've decided that they understand what's desirable. So they've started to test for it, for what they think is desirable, and the thing that they find desirable is, in every sense, a criminal. In every sense. Oh, you're perfect for the job. The personality test we've done on you says that you're a go-getter and you can get the job done. You'd be like, yeah, but also it's like if you were recruiting for some kind of death squad, you'd see those same characteristics as being, useful for the death squad too. Ha. It's like the social engineers, people who think they know and have tried to adjust and fuck with, have gotten to all of us, every single one of us. If you've escaped from it, good for you. You've got an advantage over everyone else. I ain't escaped it. Oh, by the time I've escaped it, I'm too fucking old to do anything about it. I tell you, social engineers, people who think they know better, people who've got the levers of the state in order to nudge and change people's behaviour, they've been at it to try to create better humans, and all they've done is created humans that are better at telling fucking lies and better at finding weaknesses, and then taking the violence away from childhood. Fucking funny old double-edged sword, that one, isn't it? When you start expelling kids from school for punching someone in the face who needs a punch in the face because they're a fucking arsehole. When you've taken that power away and you've made that the expulsion, the game has then become, let's just provoke that guy until he reacts, and it's him who will get into all the trouble. So you've actually incentivized a kind of macabre, provocational sport. Where, us fellas, us big lads have been, it's like the state, the power of the state and the law holds us down, while anyone who wants to say the magic words can just give us a kick in the fucking nuts while we're on the ground. That's the thing too. Incredible, ridiculous numbers of completely henpecked men who see the world like women do, because that's the only way and the only environment in which they're allowed to live without despair. Like, I'm so pleased I never signed up for that. Nightmare. It's like we live in a rough place, in a rough time, and those who you look to for guidance, naturally, our mothers and our grandmothers and our parents, they're dumbasses. They're conditioned. Fucking boomers. Reason people my age will come out dysfunctional is because of the fucking boomer parents who have found themselves at the levers of controlling the world, and now what are they, right? Easy for the young to manipulate. That's why they're all climate crazy. Their grandkids have said, they've told me about climate change at school. I don't want to die, Grandad. I don't want to die. And Grandad's like, I'll fight for you till the ends of the earth. And it'd be like, can it get any dumber? And the answer is yes. It can always get dumber.